Ooh, he's out early today. I'm going to read you one of my favorite books, and it's always a good book to read around Easter. It's called The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. This is one of the best. Peter Rabbit. And the pictures are awesome too. The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Once upon a time there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. Fir tree is like a pine tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of bread and 5 currants. Now don't go in Mr. McGregor's garden. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. So they decided to collect blackberries while Mama goes to the store. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce, and then some French beans, and then he ate radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. Think his mom's going to be happy? But around the end of a cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving his rake, calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. There's Mr. McGregor. "Get out of my garden! Get out of my garden! You thief!" He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that he might have gotten away if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons and was very new. Peter gave himself up for being lost, and he started crying big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and begged him to try to get free himself. So here's Peter. He got stuck by the net, by his buttons, and he couldn't get out. So the little sparrows say, "Try, Peter, try. Don't give up." Mr. McGregor found a sieve, which he intended to put on top of Peter. Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind. Remember, that was his new jacket. And Mr. McGregor found this, they call it a sieve. He was going to put it on top of Peter and catch him. But Peter got out of his jacket and began to run away. That was close. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a watering can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Suddenly, Peter sneezed. "Ka-choo!" Uh-oh. There's Mr. McGregor looking all around. There's Peter trying to jump into the watering pot, but there's water in it. Mr. McGregor says, "He's here somewhere, I'll find him." And then Peter sneezed. Ka-choo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. He tried to catch Peter, who jumped out a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to work. Whew. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He had no idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. So he's lost in the shed. He doesn't know where to go or how to get out of there. And he's cold and he's wet. Oh, my goodness. Well, Mr. McGregor went back to work. Peter has to figure out how to get home. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorsteps, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but it became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to the cat. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. There's the cat sitting by the pond. And there's the little mouse with the pea in his mouth. And there's the big garden. Peter just doesn't know which way to go. Where's the gate? I think we might be able to see it, but Peter can't find it yet. He went back toward the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but soon as nothing happened, he came out, climbed upon a wheelbarrow, and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing the onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and beyond him was the gate. There's Peter looking at Mr. McGregor. He's in the wheelbarrow. And way over here is the gate. So how is he going to get there without getting caught? Let's find out. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow, started running as fast as he could go, along a straight walk behind some blueberry bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped under the gate and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up his little jacket and the shoes as a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Oh my gosh, look at Peter. He's just going to make it under the gate, and here goes Mr. McGregor trying to catch him. Get out of here, you thief! There goes Peter. Mr. McGregor took his coat and Peter's shoes. Peter never stopped running or looking behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in 2 weeks. There's his 3 sisters and his mom, and there's Peter sleeping. And she says, wonder where his jacket and shoes are. It's the second jacket and the second pair of shoes. I think we might know where they went. That evening, Peter was not very well. His mother put him to bed, made him some tea. She gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 spoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. While Peter went to bed, they got to get their treat. Poor Peter. The end. Well, we're glad he's safe and sound. But he was being a little mischief going in the garden. Good story, huh? Bye.